thank you, and welcome everybody to today's presentation. My name is Radovan Gregor, and I'm a second-year student here at the faculty as an external PhD student with Professor Farkas. And my presentation is about the mirroring mechanisms for trustworthy human-robot interactions. So the goals or the aims of the thesis are to analyze the properties of existing models and of the mirror neuron systems, design a model based on neural networks and implement it in a humanoid robot, test the model in a simulated environment within a human-robot interaction, and transfer the model to a physical robot at the end. So here's some literature, but first I want to say that enhancement, social appeal of robots, of humanoid robots, it's not an easy task. It doesn't only do with the appearance. We have to have a deeper knowledge of behavior and also of interaction between robots and humans. So so we are trying to build a relationship that is trustworthy, and that is trustworthy between the robots and people. And trust is a concept that is a little bit general. It's something that can be interpreted in different ways. But in general, it mediates the relationship between past events and subsequent decisions of individual to rely on somebody else in, for example, in unknown environment. So, as the name of the thesis suggests, we'll propose some steps to build trustworthiness between the human and robots and in their interactions. So trust is something that we learn through social experience or social interactions with people as we grow up, for example. But robots, they lack this kind of ability. So we have to enhance their capabilities, the cognitive capabilities, with some new skills. And for example, the one skill we are trying to do is action recognition. We're trying to implement in the robots. So we will use mirror neurons, which were initially discovered around 1990 in the brain of macaque monkeys. And this is a premotor cortex, which has a very interesting characteristics, because these neurons they charge both when an individual is executing an action and when the same individual is observing an action done by somebody else. So the mirror neurons, they are believed to mediate the understanding of actions from the inside. For example, like something like empathy or imitation learning. And they sometimes are also believed to have effect on the evolution of gestural systems or language as well. So in the macaque monkeys, the research was done on single neurons. So there were electrodes that were implied in the brain, and they were recording the activity in one neuron itself. And the neurons, the mirror system is believed to encode the different types of motor behavior, for example, hand grasping or head movement or, for example, mouth movement. And they are activated by specific sensory inputs, for example, visual. The interesting thing is that you need the presence of a target. The presence of a target is required, so the monkey has to see the object of the action to fire the mirror neurons. In humans, it is a little bit more complicated, because we cannot actually record a single neurons in our brain cells. So we are using different brain imaging techniques to record larger areas of neurons. So these are then called mirror areas, and they have specific characteristics. They are more general, more abstract, so they can fire also in the case of if a human sees a robotic arm, or if a target is missing, or the pure imagination can evoke the mirror neurons. So the mirror neurons in humans are believed to do with action understanding. There are some hypotheses that go with that, and one of them is the direct matching hypothesis that tells that we have some resonance in the motor areas that is created when we perform the action, as well when we see the action. So we understand understand the action by having the same resonance in the brain. Others disagree with this idea because we can use the same motion, the same trajectory for different kind of actions. So there are many questions also arise. How do we understand observed action that we don't have in our repertoires, for example? So this theory has also very many people who disagree with it. So there are many computational and conceptual models that come with the theory of mirror neurons. Some are strictly obeying the results of experimentations. Some are really abstract. So there are computational models that focus mostly on grasping, for example, MNS1, MNS2. And most of these conceptual models attribute high-level functions such as action understanding and imitation to the mirror neurons, as we said before. There have been also research-related work done here at the faculty, mostly done by Professor Farkas or Kristina Malinovská. They have done some research and suggested some models that could be implemented using the mirror neuron system. For example, a robotic model of the mirror neuron system, or a neural model of perspective invariance in F5 region. They use mostly biologically plausible neural networks, for example, self-organized maps, or the UBAL neural network that's been created here as well. Here's another example of some models that could be used with mirror neurons, for example, the forward model or inverse model that they are used to predict the state of the system given action and the current state. So we are working at the faculty with a humanoid robot called Nico. It's a neural-inspired companion. It's a developmental humanoid robot platform used for multimodal interaction. This kind of cognitive model or embodiment agents are very good because they have features like vision or hearing. They have also the arm that can be moved, the fingers, the hands, and they can be used in interaction with human as well. So we have this kind of robot here at our faculty, and right now there is also research being done with Nico through the Terrais project as well. So we are trying to build a model for the action understanding using Nico, but right now we're not working with the actual Nico. We're using Nico in a simulation environment in Unity, and here you can see we have two Nico agents. One of them is observer, one of them is the executor of the motion. So for now, we are not working with a human-robot interaction, just two robots for now. So the executor, we have split the tasks of the executor into two modules, the motion planning and the motion execution. So the motion plan, as you can see, he will create a single configuration in joint space for the arm and the hand. Given object or some kind of we have here a cuboid object. So given the object and the task, he will create a plan or the motion, the configuration in joint space. This is not visible to the observer. It's something that is happening inside in a state of mind, we can say, of the executor. So the planning is not visible. What we can see, or the observer, what he can see is the execution of the plan. So the execution, it's a sequence of motion to reach the goal state. The goal state is the plan. And the execution depends on the motion profile, obstacles on the trajectory, and we can have different trajectory profiles depending on the environment. Okay, so we have tried to generate some motion trajectories. These are motion trajectories of the executor. We have used reinforcement learning in Unity simulation. Reinforcement learning is a model or a simulation that has an agent acting in some kind of environment, and the agent performs some action, gets rewards or policy or negative rewards, penalties, and then updates the state. So the advantage here is we can use multi-parallel training, multi-agents at the same time. For our first task, we tried a simple task in reinforcement learning, and the task was just to grab some kind of object in front of the simulated agent, Nico. So we had observations which were agent collected some observations which included joint positions and the distance from the end effector relative to the target. And we had actions. The actions were the agent received actions that modified the joint angles and updated the robot's positions accordingly. We had the rewards and penalties, for example, distance-based rewards, how far is the effector from the object, and orientation-based reward, which encouraged the effector to align the hand in orientation with the target object. So we have a small video. I hope I can play it here with the final execution. So this is just a simple task. This was just the beginning. Okay, as you can see in this simulation, the motion is very shaky. Okay, so what we learned from this? Okay, what we learned from this, that we could see a nice unstable progress of motion control in joint space. This graph here, these are positions of the joints in respect of time. So it's a timeline of joint values, and you can see they are not consistent. So also underneath you can see the speed of joints. It's just going like crazy up and down. So the first problem was that for the prediction of actions, we are trying to create really a stable motion profile, a stable trajectory that could be predicted by the observer. And the other thing that was here a problem was that we have 6 degrees of freedom for the arm, just for the arm, that could reach the object in different kind of configurations. Some of the configurations are not natural for us. So Nico can do different kind of motions that we will never do. So first we tried to make it more biologically plausible and more natural. So we tried to put some constraints on the arm and joint movement. We tried to reduce the joint space. So this is, for example, just the joint space before, and in the upper right picture you can see the reduced joint space for the elbow, for example. So the goal is to create a motion system that could be plausible and legible for the observer. So we need to imply some restrictions first. In robotics, usually you use for this kind of transformation from Cartesian space to joint space or vice versa, you use forward and inverse kinematics. To use that, you need a very good model of the robot or the agent. So you can use a URDF model format or Denavid-Hartenberg parameters, and then you could use these formats to represent, for example, homogeneous transform from one frame to another. That's the forward kinematics. Or you can have the inverse kinematics, which is taking the position of an effector and counting backwards the joints of the arm. Here is a slight problem, because sometimes you can have multiple solutions, and sometimes there is no solution at all because the end effector position may lie outside the working space of the robot. So again, this is a traditional approach in robotics, but we are trying to make it more biologically plausible. So we are, again, trying to find some other system that could work with Nico, and we're implementing the polar coordinate system. This is for the next task that we tried. The task was to pick and place an object from the table, from a working space in front of Nico. So it included the position of an object. Here's again some cuboid or this kind of object. And so we randomly generated the object's position in front of Nico. We got the angles and distance from the arm joint, from the shoulder, for example, and we used some kind of calculation to get the shoulder position given by the angle and the upper arm position also, and the collarbone position. So basically we calculated some angles for joints and fixed them on some fixed value. This way we reduced the degrees of freedom for the robot. So again, we created some kind of neural network that would take as input the position of an object in a Cartesian space in XYZ, and it will compute the desired joint positions for two joints. And we implemented it in the reinforcement learning procedure. So the next task was to pick an object from a table and place it in a container that was also on the table as well. So now we can see when I stop this configuration of arm is the one I was talking about. It's something that we calculated first. So we are not using a random position. The first position is calculated so we have some naturally looking motion. Okay, so, and the rest is the reinforcement learning doing. So this is some rewards for picking the object, some rewards for placing the object in the mug. Okay, as you can see here, there was very low success rate of completed actions. Mostly it's because maybe the rewards and penalties were not set very exact, or maybe it could be more rewards. But for our purpose, it was enough to see this kind of action being done, because, again, we are trying to do something that is biological, and this reinforcement learning doesn't really give us a biological related outcome. So the next task was a task when Nico was supposed to pick an object with a precision grasp. Precision grasp is that you have a finger and a thumb, and you pick an object by just putting these two fingers and lifting it up from the table. Now we tried not to use reinforcement learning, but because also we have now a very complex maneuvers or complex joint state for the hand. You have to now adapt not only the joints of the arm, but also the joints of the fingers itself. So we tried to do a new approach. We basically calculated the positions of the object, possible positions of the object in front of Nico. We created some database of possible positions, and to each position we assigned a specific joint state for the arm and for the hand. Okay, so we have a database of joints and of positions of the objects. Now those positions don't cover the whole working space. Okay, so sometimes when you generate a random position, the position is not in your database. So we used something to calculate from any random position the joint angles for the given object position. So we found 3 nearest neighbors for each position. We generated randomly, and we normalized the distances to get some weights, and we used these weights to compute the weighted average of joint angles of all the 3 neighbors. So we calculated the angles for the random position from the average of all the 3 neighbors, and it worked pretty good. So now that we have a system how to generate some positions on the plane on the table, we created trajectories that were from discrete steps, which means we have again the same task to pick and place an object from a table. So we created one position for picking an object, another position that was a little above the object, another position was a transition from picking to placing the object in another place, and altogether there were 13 trajectories or 13 steps per one trajectory. And so we generated sequence of joint angles for all 19 degrees of freedom of Nico's arm. This included also the movements of finger and thumb. So now when we have the plan is it's a discrete positions in Cartesian space. We need to create the trajectory execution, which is a continuous movement from one position to another in the joint space. And the problem with this kind of approach that these joints have different angular distances, and there are various possible trajectory profiles that could be done. So you have one point, another point, and you can have different trajectory between them created by the motion of the hand. So this is our the final result. It's the picking and placing of the object from the table using motion velocity profile I will talk about in a second. So this was the final execution of the trajectory. The trajectory could be random, and what we were using was the motion profile, which refers to the way how the joints move over time. This can affect synchronization, this can affect the speed, the smoothness, so everything. And here we try to use a constant velocity motion profile, which means the angles or the joints reach some desired motion speed, and they maintain the motion speed from one point to another. We use the Unity's functionality that increments the move of joints toward their targets, and so we had some fixed value for speed, and by certain time steps we incremented the position of the arm. Another problem we could see here was when we had this trajectory done that you could have a different distances for the joints. The angular distances for joints are different. So if you have the same speed for every joint, you get different time that the joint travels to reach the final position, final point. So in the end, we tried to synchronize the motion so that we calculated the maximum distance from all the distances that the joints could travel, and we adjusted the other joints so that they adjusted their speed, so that the time that it takes to travel from one position to another was the same for all the joints. And this is called a synchronized motion. So this kind of motion pretty much is the closest we can get to a natural looking motion in humans. Okay, so now we have some pretty decent trajectory that is applied by Nico. It's pretty natural. We can use it for our purpose to predict the actions, but first we need to predict the next state of the trajectory. So that's why we decided to use some kind of recurrent neural network with simple architecture, that is the echo state networks. That these networks are effective at handling time series, and they're very fast in learning and also very easy to implement because they have input and reservoir weights that are fixed and assigned at the beginning, and only the output weights are learned. So our input was the trajectory time series, which consisted of all the joints in some kind of motion, in some time series, and the output was the trajectory shifted one step ahead. So we're trying to predict the next step of the trajectory by this neural network. Okay, so we are doing the signal generation and prediction of future joint states. We have used 50 reservoir neurons that were activated to some state, and we used a recursive prediction of joint states, which means that we fed the output of the network back to itself, to its input, and so it was feeding on its own output the prediction of the next steps. We used 100 last steps to activate the state of the reservoir, and then we predicted the future 100 steps. Now, here you can see these are only 3 joints that we have in the picture, but we predicted the position of all the joints, and you can see the red line is the real time steps that were recorded from the simulation, and the blue lines are the predicted time steps. This one is the recursive prediction, that is the 100 steps from the point where we started the prediction. And as you can see, they are pretty close to reality. So we can pretty much predict the 100 next steps of the motion that Nico is doing. And this is the video I'm showing you. One Nico on the left side is doing actual trajectory, and the one on the right side is predicting from the starting position. But maybe I can show it one time. This is the beginning. They are pretty close at the beginning. Of course, when the time steps are more and more distinct from the beginning, you can see the difference in the actual joint and in the predicted joints. But for our purpose, it's enough for the starting position and a couple steps to be predicted very precisely. Well, what we need this for is that this is just approximation. We don't need to have a 100% precise trajectory. We are trying to predict the motion so that we can identify the object that is being picked. So this way, when we use this prediction, we can pretty much see where the motion the hand is going to, and we can, once we identify the object, then we can start rebuilding the motion plan in the observer. Once we have the object, we can identify the task, because the motion trajectory that you can now see doesn't do anything with the task or the motion plan. It's just just a trajectory that's being done, and that's it. So we need to the future steps to identify the object, identify the task, and then we can do the action recognition again in the observer. So, and that's what we are going to implement in the future. We want to implement the action recognition with this kind of prediction. Okay, so thank you.